Hey guys, it's Kevin again, and this can be my review for Reign, Season 2, Episode 4, The Lamb and the Slaughter. And this episode was amazing, by far the best episode of the season, and there were a lot of things I definitely really liked about this episode. My only thing in this episode was the pacing. This episode was a little bit too fast-paced at some points in my opinion. It didn't really bother me, but I just noticed that it was a little bit too fast-paced, and if they keep doing that, it is going to become a problem. It wasn't a problem in this episode, but it just, I hope they don't continue doing that, because I'm not really a fan of the fast-paced stuff. But overall, I really enjoyed it, and let's just get to this episode, because overall, I thought it was definitely really good, and as I said, the best episode of the season. So we see a sheep herder. He's moving his sheep in the rain when he sees horses, and he asks who's there and what they want, and they write him down, and Catherine, Francis, and Mary are talking about the baby's christening, and who could be a godchild. And Mary asks what Lola thinks, but Catherine dismisses her. Catherine's kind of annoyed that she was denied because, she wanted to be the, she wanted to be part of this, but Lola says she knows why. And Francis isn't sure about a big party, but says it's the best way to show that all they should accept him. And Catherine also mentions that Mary attending christening of the bastard is groundbreaking, then tells Lola the child is growing on her. So Lola leaves and Mary follows and tells her that Catherine always runs parties and Lola wants to move to a cottage on the grounds, and she's worried that Mary will resent her and the child. And Mary says the time for resentment is past, and Lola reminds her she never really got mad at her. And Mary says Francis wants to help raise a son. Lola has already made plans to move, and Mary asks what about her duties to her as a lady. She's annoyed and tells Lola she's dismissed. And what I really liked in this episode was this episode actually focused a lot more on Lola and Mary. There's definitely a lot more tension between them, and I really enjoyed that, definitely. Definitely something I really enjoyed. So, Louis comes to tell Francis about the horseman attack, and Louis says people are afraid, and there's a loose talk of restless spirits, and he refers him to Bash to settle it, and Francis welcomes Leith back and apologizes for having to give his lands to Narcisse, and he promises to find him land later and offer him position with Bash for now. So, Leith accepts, and they call each other friend. And Narcisse shows up with Estelle, and this was very surprising because Lola recognizes her and tells the ladies that she last saw her in a cage where he had locked her up. So, obviously, it's very interesting what's going on here because it turns out that Estelle is his wife, and they're all very surprised because, think about this, he had this girl locked up in a cage, so obviously, he probably forced her to get married to him, and they're all very shocked what's going on here. But Estelle seems to be actually a very sweet woman who doesn't really seem to be scared or anything, so it's very weird what's going on here. So she says she made Lola a gift, a handkerchief that she fancied up, and the ladies notice Estelle's hands were trembling as she handed over the same parcel. So her new husband takes her to get the king's blessing on their nuptials, and Lola opens the gift and a note falls out that says, "Help me," and she shows it to Kenna and Greer. So Frances finds Mary by the water, and this was a very good scene, definitely, and she says she was thinking of when they were children together, because if you remember, and I actually forgot this, they were friends. They knew each other as children, and they've always been really good friends. She points out the tree that she learned to climb in, and she reveals that she's pregnant, and she just says she wanted to confirm it, which I kind of saw coming because of the way they ended last week's episode. And he's thrilled and twirls her about and kisses her. And I thought it was surprising they showed that so early in the episode. Honestly, I feel like that should have been the end of last week's episode, was her revealing that she's pregnant, because I think that would have been better. But they're giggling in bed, and he asks how she kept it a secret. She says she didn't want to interfere with the coronation and christening, and we get a very funny scene where Catherine bursts in and congratulates them and says she's hoping for a grandson and says there's time for daughters later. And Mary asks how she knew, and Catherine says she's been watching her and had her chamber pot tested. Plus, she had spies follow her. She sits on their bed smiling, and they are appalled since, of course, they're naked in bed. So they pull the covers and tell her they want to keep it quiet. So Catherine won't have it and says they have to spread the word that she's fertile to shore up support and show that she is fit to be Queen of France, Scotland, and England. And she brings her a big tray and tells her to eat up. She's feeding the future King of France, and now she goes to tell her ladies, and they toast with the champagne. And I thought that was really funny with Catherine. One of the things I definitely like about Catherine is she kind of is a villain, but she's hilarious. Okay, she definitely is very funny. She's more of a comical villain, and I definitely really enjoy that. So Mary goes to her ladies, Lola, Greer, and Kenna. That's who she goes to. And they toast with champagne, and Lola asks Greer if she's heard from Castleroy, and she says she doesn't know where she stands. So she tells Lola she'll have love, and it's better now that Francis had recognized her with the baby, and it will raise up her statue. And she's worried no one want to wed her because they'll think she's Francis's mistress, or they'll be worried about displeasing the king. So they also discuss what they do to try and help Estelle, because, they can see that definitely something is going on with her. And Bash and Louie go to talk to the shepherd, and he says the riders were cloaked and their hands were cold as ice. And he says he thought they would kill him, but they offered him a gift, which is a mark to help his family prosper. And he says they asked him to renounce God, but he ran. He says that this has happened to others, and worried if others had given their souls. And Lola goes to see Estelle, who begs her to set her free from Narcisse, and she asks why she married him. And we basically find out why, because she lost everything, and he told her it was the only way to keep her lands since her family was dead, which I kind of predicted that that's what happened. So she says servants have told her horror stories about deaths of his other wives, and Estelle says they haven't consummated their marriage because she's turned him away, but says he's growing impatient. She tells Lola she's powerful as a king's mistress, and says she can help her. She begs her to save her from Narcisse, and that definitely was very interesting what's going on there. So Greer sees Leith talking to others, and Kenna asks if she could be with him, but she says she can't be ruled by desire and has to provide for her sisters. We still don't really know why she can't be with Leith. I personally didn't understand why. So Kenna says she and Bash have worked it out. Now their marriage is good. And Kenna says they are driven by passion, and Greer should recognize that now before it edges her reason. So Lola comes to Mary and Francis to plead Estelle's case, and Francis said the problem is these are just rumors. And Lola says how she's in a life that she doesn't want based on one moment of weakness. And Francis is very surprised because that now describes Lola as well. So Mary asks to talk to her alone. And this was an amazing scene, definitely. I personally love this scene. Adelaide Kane in this scene, great stuff. And whoever plays Lola, I'm trying to think of what her name is. I know I've seen her in stuff before. Obviously, I've seen her in The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. And, the Narnia movies. But I'm trying to think of her name, but I can't really place her right now. I don't know what it is. So, basically, Lola reminds her that they helped her when she was facing marriage to a bad man. She says she's lost her compassion and her happiness. And Mary says Lola's cage is of her own making when she decided to sleep with the man she knew that Mary loved. And I was very happy that Mary actually finally got upset at this, because I was like, why is Mary, hiding her emotion? I mean, Mary seems like she would be very affected by this, and we didn't really see that, and now that emotion finally comes out, and I thought that was amazing. So, basically, Lola says she has no choices, neither does Estelle, but Mary always will because she's queen. And she goes to talk out, and Mary tells her she's her queen. And Mary says she agrees that it will be good if she is housed elsewhere out of her sight. So you can tell right away, definitely there are issues between them. And I honestly gotta agree with both of them. To Lola, Mary is, she's jealous of Mary because Mary is the queen and she is not going to be treated as well as her. And she's very jealous of her. On Mary's point of view, though, she is upset that Lola, slept with Francis in the first place when she knew that that was the person that Mary was in love with. So, I understand why Mary's upset, and I understand why Lola's upset. So, they both have really good points there. And that was just a really big scene. I really enjoyed that because, as I said, I was very, I was pretty much just like, why is Mary holding in her emotion? And now she's not. So Lola tells Estelle she's made arrangements to get her away from court and Narcisse, and she tells her to meet her in chambers tonight. And Estelle says she will and will be careful, and there's a dance that night. And Mary asks what the christening will be like if this is a small banquet. And according to Catherine, he tells her she's beautiful, but she worries she'll balloon out and says Catherine said Scottish women do that. She looks around for Lola and tells Francis they argue, but he shouldn't concern himself. And Bash goes to tell Francis about the shepherd, and he thinks it's someone encouraging terror. And Bash says he doesn't want to burden him on a day when he's a father 2 times over. And Francis says if it's normal men spreading fear, that Bash needs to track them down. He wants Bash to do it himself. He doesn't want to help him, really. So Mary goes to Nostradamus about Estelle, and he does say that he's had 4, and Nostradamus says he's not likely to let her go unless he gets a new distraction. And Catherine comes over and says the ball is a dud and asks why the young people aren't dancing, but then says Mary can't, rubs her stomach, and she then sends Louis to dance with Greer to get things started and watches with a smile. And more couples are coming to dance, and Leith is rotated to be her partner. which is very awkward. He says there's no reason this has to be awkward. You know, she says, look, this does not have to be awkward. She agrees, but then they stare at each other and says she has to go. The moment they said this is not going to be awkward, I'm like, this is definitely going to be awkward. I mean, come on, it's going to be. So Mary comes to ask Narcisse where Estelle is, and he says she's still dressing. She asks why he married someone without dowry, and points out many rich and landed women. He asks about what her point is, and she says France owes him a significant debt, and that could be eased by arranging a more advantageous marriage, and says she and Francis would support annulling Estelle, basically getting her out of this marriage. But then one of Narcisse's men comes and says she's out of her chamber, and a guard was stabbed, and Estelle rushes into Lola's chamber. She says she thinks she killed a guard, and they're looking for her. She says she can't get away and can't go back. So when that happened, I'm like, okay, this is not good, obviously, because if that's true, then she's probably going to die. Plus, they want to get her out of here, and now she's basically trapped. So Lola's washing the blood off her hands, and Mary bursts in demanding to know what's going on. She asks Lola if she knows how much danger she puts her in, and Lola tells her about the plan, and Mary says she has to give up Estelle so he doesn't put her life in danger. And Lola says his cruelty is the reason she can't give her back, and she says Estelle is not a thing, and says Narcisse will have her hang. So obviously, if they try to do anything to Estelle, it's not going to work out well in the end, because they know how powerful Narcisse is. And if they do anything, then she's going to be hanged. And they can't do anything about that. So Mary thinks and she agrees to help. She tells Estelle to come with her. They dress her as a servant and she loads her up. So I thought that was very clever what they're doing. One of Narcisse's guards approaches and demands to search the carriage. She gets queenly and tells him they are transporting a relic and threatens to have him whipped to death. She and Lola share a drink. They discuss that at least Narcisse hasn't sent guards after the carriage. They drink wine and make peace. So basically they make amends and say, look, I'm sorry about what happened, but everything's okay now. So I'm glad that they're back to being friends. In my opinion, I think that was a little too fast-paced. I did not want to see them make amends in this episode. I wanted to see them at each other's throats in this episode and then make amends in the next episode. That's really my only complaint as far as the pacing. There's one other thing with the pacing that I do want to talk about. That part didn't really bother me. There's one other thing, though, that kind of did. So Mary tells Lola to stop feeling guilty and stay with the people she loves him. She wants her son and the baby she's carrying to grow up together. So I think that's really sweet. Lola asks her to be godmother, and she says she knows this puts her in an awkward position, but says there is no one she trusts more. So Mary says she would be honored, and that's really sweet. So next day, Frances says if she's sure, her choice to be godmother makes him very happy. But she's feeling very unwell suddenly, so that's really weird. So Louis approaches and he offers to get help. She asks him to help her to her room. He offers to get a doctor, but she tells him to tell no one. He sees blood on her shoe, and she says she's actually losing her child. So she just had a miscarriage, basically, but there's nothing that they can do about it now. She says no one can know until after the christening, and he says she needs care, but she demands he keep it quiet for now. Now, it makes sense why she loses a child, because she drank alcohol, and everyone knows if you drink while you're pregnant, you're not supposed to drink while you're pregnant. That's just a thing. So, obviously, that's why she is losing the baby. And my only complaint with this was that, again, I felt this was a little too fast-paced. I would not have wanted to see this yet, Basically, we just found out that she's pregnant in this episode, and now she's losing the baby already. I just thought that was a little bit weird, the pacing. It wasn't a problem. It didn't bother me or anything, but I hope they don't continue that. So she cries as the pain takes her over, but then regains her composure and goes to the christening, and Kenna wonders where Leith and Greer are, and Mary holds her godson as the priest performs the christening. It's very sweet. He's christened John Philip Barton of Ville, and Frances smiles as Mary holds his son. She gently hands the boy to Lola, and Frances toys with the baby while Mary watches sadly. Louis also looks very sad. It's very sad because she knows that she's not gonna have a child now, and that, Lola has this baby, but she's not going to. So it does make sense, though, why they did it, because in reality, I don't know if you guys know this, in reality, Mary, Queen of Scots, actually had only one son. So it makes sense why they're deciding, why they did that so quickly, because obviously people would be upset because people already complain the show is historically inaccurate, so that's probably why they did that. So basically, Greer shows up to see Castleroy, and she says she rode all night to marry him. He says he doesn't truly love him. She doesn't truly love him the way she does. And Leith, he says he loved her and wanted to protect her from ruin. He says he can't put his happiness at risk to save her. He tells her she can rest, then she'll return to court. So a servant tells Lola that Estelle jumped to her death at the cliffs after their carriage arrived. She says Estelle said she saw her parents below calling to her. even though they died in the plague, and basically she went mad because of that. So there's nothing they can do about Estelle now because she's dead. I mean, it's a cop-out. I guess I understand why they did that, but I mean, in Estelle's situation, I could see why they did that. The pressure got to her. She didn't know what to do, so she just killed herself. It makes sense why she did that, but it was sort of a cop-out in my opinion. So Louis approaches Francis and tells him Mary didn't look well at the ceremony and says he'll go check on her. Bash grabs Louis to go check on the shepherd because that's what matters to him. You know, he cares about Mary, but the shepherd is his main concern right now. So Narcisse sits with Estelle's body, and Lola comes in and says Estelle was afraid. Narcisse tells her those are ugly rooms, says he is not soulless. He says her father owed him a lot of money and says marrying her preserved her lands. He says he needed heirs and she was young and pretty. He says he just wanted to protect her. She asks about his other wives. And then after this, what ended up happening was there was this really stupid announcement that came on my TV all about Ebola, and it cut off the rest of the episode. So I had to watch the rest of the episode on a website, and I wasn't as focused. Just telling you guys, that's why the end of the episode might not be might not be as good because it just cut off because it's like Ebola warning. It's like I really don't care. I just want to watch Rain. Come on, I don't care. CW. He says his father wed him to his first wife at 15, and she has repeated miscarriages, but his father kept pushing for heirs. And he says after she died, his father forced a second wife on him that was hemophilic, and she says that, sorry, I just got a message on Skype. She wasted before his eyes. She asks if he's ever been in love, and he says that's a rare jewel he has yet to see, and she seems convinced. So Bash and Louis ride hard to the shepherd's cottage and find the man's wife and children slaughtered, and the cottage is a wreck. And the shepherd is alive and held under guard. He says his wife was shrill and his children were loud. He says he took shears and murdered them. He says he hasn't been right since the storm, and Bash has them strip him. So the mark of the rider is on him. He says he has said none, but they forced the mask on him, and he took his soul and left the devil in. So that definitely is very crazy what happened there. So Francis finds Mary lying in bed crying, and basically, he doesn't know why, because of course she told Louis to keep this under wraps, not tell him what's going on, and she admits that she lost the baby. He asks why she didn't send for him, and she says he was happy at the christening. She says she wondered, would the child have his curls or eyes or a mix of them both? She cries and he holds her close while she sobs. It's really sad what happened, and I really did feel bad for Mary in that scene, definitely. So Castleroy comes in and tells Greer she needs to go. She says he needs to know why she can never be with Leith. And I'm very happy that she finally told him why, because I myself was like, well, why can't you just say why you can't be with Leith? And basically she admits why, because she is not a good partner for Leith, because he wants to rise. She says it's too uncertain. She says he knows who he is already and tells him he's gracious, brave, and kind. She says he helped her sisters and values not as a prize but as a partner. And she says she can make him happy and says he'll regret letting her go. She says she knows he wants passion, says she does too. She says they haven't given it a true chance. She steps closer and kisses him, and she asks him to see what's really between them. So basically, she pulls down her gown, and they have sex. So I thought that was definitely really good. I'm happy that she admitted why she, doesn't want to be in this relationship with Leith. And basically, I guess their marriage is a go, because it looks like next week their marriage is going to happen. So that's going to be interesting to see not next week, but the next episode, their marriage is going to happen. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens there. So I'm happy that they're getting married. I feel bad for Leith, but what are you going to do? Not everyone in the show can be happy. So Bash tells Francis the shepherd is in the dungeon, but he's barking mad and says no one took his soul. Louis says the thing he saw in his house seemed inhuman, and Bash says there were warnings about restless souls about the plague, and Bash says their father went mad from his sins and dies in another hand. Bash says there's always a reckoning, and he thinks the riders are part of it. He says dark times are among them. The reckoning's here, and blood will pay for blood. And then Catherine, this is really weird. I don't know what's going to happen here. She sees two little girls who beg her to help them now since she didn't before. There's a line of sage on the floor. She sweeps out of the way. They run off into the castle. So I don't know what's going to happen there. That was really weird. So I don't know what's going on there. So Francis asks Mary if she's feeling better. She is, and he says he was thinking about her memories of them growing up. He reminds her when she was 8 and they had snuck out at night. And I thought this was a great scene. She remembers he wanted to catch fireflies. He says some nights they didn't, and she would cry. He says the thrill for him was in the waiting with her. He opens the window and tells her to look over at the balcony. She does and sees he has lit lanterns that are flying up into the sky. He kisses and holds her and tells her the world can be dark and uncertain and even cruel, but says what really matters is that they face it together. He says whatever the future brings, she's his light, and he kisses her, and I thought that was a great way to end the episode. So overall, I love this episode. Thought this was the best episode of the season. As I did say, there were a couple pacing issues. But let's talk about a few things. First of all, I think they are going to try again. I think they are going to try to have another kid, but I don't think they should right now. You know, maybe wait a couple episodes and then have them try to have another kid. Because if they try again the next episode, I'm not exactly going to be very happy if they do that, so we'll have to see what happens there. Greer, I'm very happy that she finally told Castleroy why she can't marry Leith, you know, why she can't be with Leith. Definitely, I think they are going to get married in the next episode. That looks like where that's going to go. And I think that's what's going on with Catherine and that Sage thing. I have no idea what's going on there. That definitely was very weird. Now, no, you know, what's going on at all. We'll have to see what happens, definitely. Really, I don't know what's going on there. So, and as far as Narcisse goes, I think Narcisse, as I've still said before, he's a very good villain. I'm really enjoying him on this show. Awesome, awesome villain. He's doing a great job, definitely. And basically, Bash and Louie, I don't know what's going to happen here with this Shepherd. We'll have to see what happens. I think definitely, you know, the Shepherd's still alive, so we'll have to see what happens with the Shepherd. I think that is going to continue in the next episode. And that's basically my review. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Let me know what you guys saw this episode. As I said, I thought this was the best episode of the season. I'll see you guys in my next video, which will be my review for episode 5 of Reign. So I'll see you guys for that. Okay, bye.